The Moraine Valley Library's One Book program has been around for over a decade, and during this time we have covered many books. But this year, starting in the fall of 2016, we decided to do something different. This year we're going to use the musical Hamilton by Lin-Manuel Miranda as our one-book text. This idea came to us from librarians Natalie Hall and Tish Hayes. My name is Troy Swanson, and I'm the library's department chair. Tish, Natalie, and I recorded a short conversation about our one-book program on Hamilton. Why would we choose a musical soundtrack as our one book? Here's our conversation. So finding this one book was a challenge because we wanted a thing that connected to the election. And we went through a lot of books, and we're considering how do we get to this election? How do we talk about politics? How do we talk about government leading into November of 2016? And one of you guys, I don't remember who.
It was Natalie.
Brought me this idea. And at first I was like, we can't do a musical.
I think it actually started when Natalie and I were in the kitchen talking about Hamilton and our mutual love for Hamilton. And Natalie said, what if this was the one book? And I was like, oh my God, what if this was the one book?
Right.
And I couldn't, it from that moment on, I felt like it was inevitable. Like there is no way it could not have been the one book. We loved it so much.
So did you tell me?
No, I brought the idea to Tish. And then she brought it to you.
And it took a couple times to convince me.
Yes. But we kept talking about it.
And so what did you see?
Well, my undergraduate institution actually does something similar to our One Book, One College program, but they use books, and they use works of art, and they use symphonies and operas.
So not just books.
I had already had some experience with, this multidisciplinary approach, as a one college program. And so I could already see how that could work for us, even though it was something very different.
I think the themes of Hamilton speak so well to our campus. Once you start talking about the approach of Hamilton, looking at Hamilton's rise from being an immigrant and his experience coming to the U.S., or not the U.S. yet, but to this new country, finding his people, finding his friends, his mentors. In so many ways, that's what our students are doing. They're coming to this new place. Many of them are immigrants as well who are finding their place in the world. And that's, the first act of Hamilton is really finding his place and establishing himself and creating a story that he wants to tell about his own life. And I think that's so much the college experience and it's gripping, like the music's amazing. So there's all of these elements that make it both like something that's I think would be popular, but also I think students can really identify with.
And so much of his experience and so much of his success is attributable to his drive and his ambition and his work ethic. And those, of course, are all great things for our students to hear about and to see that this working hard and dreaming big can have these tangible results.
So I think once you started to convince me, I think I took the musical, I got the CDs, and then I listened to them probably on my drive home and to and home from work. And the music is kind of unbelievable. And I am not a musician, so my knowledge and ability to talk about music is quite limited. But it's hip-hop, but it's Broadway still, right? And I'm not a big Broadway person, but it's just fun. Like, it's listenable, and the lyrics are complicated. Like, it makes you laugh, and it gets serious. And I thought, wow, this is a thing that it has the themes, it has the things you talked about, but just the music is good. And I don't even know if I can describe more what I think is good.
So he does a lot of really interesting things in this musical because he draws from such a wide variety of musical genres. There is hip-hop and there's rap, but there's also nods to opera and musical theater history happening as well. So lots of pop culture references, just stuff that makes it very accessible for a very broad audience.
And I think like all great musicals, there's repeated themes. So as you get to know characters, they have a musical theme. I think it's called something else. But those reoccur throughout the musical. Things are catchy. Things sound like pop music.
And it gets in your head. It's singable. Like
Yeah.
You find how often do I walk by the reference desk and just sing a part of Hamilton, which is kind of scary.
Right. After a couple listens, it's in your head.
Right.
I would wake up in the middle of the night and like lines from the musical would be going through my head, which was great and also maddening because then I couldn't get back to sleep because I just wanted to listen to the musical. But he does things with music that I think really help connect you to the story.
I think when we pick a text, and I do think of this as a text, like, right, it's written, it has so much meaning and so much to explore within it. I always like to pick something for our one book program that connects across the disciplines, and the more I listen to it, there's so much in there for themes. So the history is a thing, but also the fact that the cast is multiracial, multi-ethnic, and speaks like the emphasis of immigration. And as immigration has been such a topic of this election, I think about like sociology classes could use this, theater classes could use this, history classes could use this, economics classes could use this. I think those are the things that were really kind of sounding off in my head, that this connects to so much of our curriculum, and it's fun and is exciting. Like, that's where I was kind of like, how can we not do this?
Right. It's a great entryway into like all of those things you mentioned. And I think, the thing that can be hard, I think, as new college students, is that you're faced with a history class, and maybe haven't been that interested in history before, but suddenly you have something that you can connect with. And I think that this musical is kind of perfect for that. There are all kinds of ways into both the musical and then other topics through it. One of the things that I love about this musical is its connection to protest movements, which I think, especially over the last year with the Black Lives Matter movement, connecting that all the way back to the American Revolution, so that seeing that there's been people rising up and changing the status quo from the very beginning of our country is so important, especially in kind of the political climate we're in now, that there is hope for change in a time when it feels like maybe there's not hope for change. Beyond the academic value of this text, I think is one of the things that speaks most to me.
I think after we said, okay, we're going to do this, one of my first steps was to figure out who Lin-Manuel Miranda was, and I think I watched like the 60 Minutes piece on him, and of course he has won Tony Awards, but I didn't know that because I don't pay attention to that. And he's like fascinating. Like he's a scholar of Broadway, but also of pop music and so much. And I think I went to his piece that he did at the White House, where the Obamas, you could just see their love for what he was doing with Hamilton. And I think his personality has helped drive this and promote it. And he's the lead. He plays Hamilton on Broadway. And he's just made this whole new thing. I think it's part of him. Like, he is out there doing this.
I think it's it's certainly been a labor of love for him. We see this finished product, and it's amazing, but it's really been a 6 or 7 year journey at this point for him to bring this from his initial ideas to the finished product on Broadway. So it's been a very long process, and lots of drafts and a lot of hard work has gone into it.
Which I think is exciting to know about, because I do think that we often look at works of art as the finished product, and we don't think about how much work and energy and effort and goes into producing those things. The fact that he synthesizes Ron Chernow's biography into a 2.5-hour play is extraordinary, and it takes a lot of effort to make that happen. And I think about our students who are trying to synthesize their ideas and the works of others to create a research paper, and just knowing that it's hard, I think is useful. And also his exuberance for it, he's done a lot of research. He did a ton of work to pull all of this together. I think is exciting to know about. He went and looked at Broadway shows, connected them to this thing that he was creating. Pretty amazing.
I think that's something that I hope over this year we can touch on with our students, because so often when we see research in the library, just to pull it to the library a little bit, I think there's this kind of ATM approach to writing and research. You type some words in, you get some articles, you read them, you make a paper. But I think all of us that are in producing anything that's creative know that editing and revising and living with something is how it really grows, and how you find those exciting ideas, like that long process of connecting and editing and deleting and adding. And that's what this is, from his different stages of from little workshops to off-Broadway to on-Broadway. And like you said, you see the end product, but behind it is hours and hours and hours of work.
And I think one of the things that's exciting about both knowing his process but then seeing the end product is that people are engaging with that end product in all kinds of creative ways. So we're not just consuming this amazing Broadway show that he's created, but people are creating their own artworks, you know, inspired by his work. And I think looking at like people's drawings of different scenes or creating characters based on like his characters it's incredible, like the kind of inspiration that he's provided for other people and the way, you know, people are engaging with this show.
And in some ways, that's also what he himself has done.
Right.
By,
yes.
you know, adopting the music of his hip-hop heroes and
Broadway heroes.
And Broadway heroes, and taking all of those pieces and making them into his own creation.
Right, which is totally the conversation that happens in scholarship. It's the conversation that happens in the art world. Like, we're all connected and taking inspiration, using pieces, you know, pulling it into ourselves and then creating something out of those inspirations. It's amazing.
Having these conversations, you know, the text is so referential, like it's so thick. Like I could hear things like, oh, that's like from the Beastie Boys, or oh, that's from Biggie. But I think people that know Broadway are like, oh, that's from Les Miserables or whatever. Like a whole list of music, as you were mentioning opera. I don't listen to it and hear opera, you know, but it's like it's such a wide open text where depending where you come from, you can connect with it. I think that is sort of kind of the secret sauce that's impossible to just magically. It takes that time to do, right? Like that so many people from so many different perspectives can find their own meanings in it. And I think that's why it's powerful. I think one of the great things, there's so many ways to access this. So we have it, the musical, the CD, the cast recording in the library and for purchase at the bookstore. We have the Hamilton Revolution books about the musical to check out, and the Ron Chernow Alexander Hamilton biography. And students can listen to this on most of the streaming sites, so Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Prime. But I think there's like a whole list of other creative venues, right?
Yeah, so you can look at a lot of videos from the show are on YouTube, so that might be one way to kind of get into it. There's also the Ham for Ham shows, which are these just couple-minute like snippets that Lin-Manuel and his co-stars perform outside of the Rogers Theater. And they've been filming them, putting them on YouTube. They're usually like sometimes clips from the show, sometimes they're just other Broadway stars singing different songs. Like it's just really fun.
How do you find those?
Those are on YouTube, and if you do hashtag Ham for Ham,
F-O-R or Ham number 4?
Ham for the number 4.
Number 4 ham. Okay.
And it's also very exciting because the show is actually coming to Chicago at the end of September.
And you got tickets?
And I got a ticket.
Show off.
But they're very hard to come by at this point through March. There's going to be more tickets on sale starting for March shows. But very exciting, there's a lottery before every performance, and they're making 40 front row tickets available to each show for only $10. So if you're interested in going, this lottery is going to be online. It's easy to enter. It's free to enter, and you have the opportunity to win a front row ticket for $10.
That's fantastic. We should give a shout out to our website just so that students know, onebook.morainevalley.edu. We have lists of resources there about Hamilton, about Alexander Hamilton history, about our themes, but also links to interviews with Lin-Manuel Miranda, links to some of the music. So that will be kind of our home base as we do events over this year. We'll post videos and things there so that people can join our conversation. It's going to be very exciting starting in the fall semester. So thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks for listening.